Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the new race for space. But here's the twist. It's not about grabbing territory anymore. It's about who gets to write the rulebook for our future off this planet.
Okay, so when you hear space race, you probably think of the 1960s, right? Well, forget that. What's happening right now is totally different and way more complex. It's not about planting a flag. Nope. This time, it's about who controls the future of humanity in the solar system.
You know how space used to be this exclusive club with just 2 members? Yeah, those days are long gone. It's turned into a free-for-all. The final frontier is, well, it's getting pretty crowded up there. And when I say crowded, I mean it. Just get a load of this. We're talking about more than 100 distinct missions planned for just the next 10 years. You've got everybody jumping in. Established space agencies, emerging nations, private companies, you name it. They've all got their eyes on the moon and whatever lies beyond. All this activity is starting to split into 2 major camps. 2 big, competing groups with completely different ideas about what our future in space should look like. And this isn't just a friendly competition over who has the best rockets. This is a clash of ideologies.
All right, let's look at the 2 big players. On one side, you have the Artemis Accords, led by the US, and on the other, the International Lunar Research Station, or ILRS, which is a China-Russia project. And man, their approaches are like night and day. Think of Artemis as a flexible set of handshake agreements. The ILRS, they're building a formal, structured organization from the ground up, headquartered in China. Even how they view resources is totally different. Artemis says you can mine stuff in these safety zones, while the ILRS is pushing for a more, shall we say, shared model.
So what's the big takeaway here? It really comes down to their whole philosophy. Artemis is all about flexibility. Sign a one-on-one deal with the US, and you're in. This lets them grow their teams super fast. The ILRS, on the other hand, is playing the long game, building a more formal, structured international body. It's 2 completely different ways of thinking about space governance. And you can really see the split in the numbers. Look at this. The Artemis Accords have already pulled in 60 countries. That's a huge coalition, mostly friends of the US. Then you have the ILRS with 17 partners. It's smaller, for sure, but it's creating this alternative power block for countries that, maybe don't want to follow Washington's lead. Okay, so with all these new players, you might be wondering, what about the old guard, the ones who started it all? Well, they're not just sitting on the sidelines, they're having to completely reinvent themselves for this new game. And let's be clear, NASA is still the 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to cash. We're talking about a budget of over $24 billion a year. That kind of money buys you a lot of rocket fuel, and they're pouring it all into their big strategic goal, getting humans back to the moon with the Artemis program.
And their very next big move is Artemis 2. Now, they're not landing yet, but this is a huge deal. They're sending 4 astronauts on a trip all the way around the moon. It's basically the final dress rehearsal, making sure all the gear, the capsule, the rocket, works perfectly before they try to stick the landing.
Meanwhile, over in Europe, the European Space Agency is playing it smart. They're carving out a super important role for themselves. Instead of just racing to the moon, they're tackling the problem of space junk. Think of missions like Clear Space 1 as the very first garbage trucks for orbit. And believe me, with how crowded it's getting, that's a job someone has to do.
But this isn't just a story about the usual suspects anymore. Not by a long shot. There are new powers rising, and they are seriously shaking things up. And you have to talk about China. Their progress has been absolutely stunning. The CNSA isn't just dabbling. They have a detailed, step-by-step plan to catch up with, and maybe even surpass the West by 2030. And look at their to-do list. Expand their space station, hunt for water on the moon, build new rockets. They're even planning trips to Jupiter and Saturn. They're going for the whole shebang. And you absolutely cannot forget India. ISRO is famous for pulling off incredible missions on a shoestring budget. They're the masters of frugal innovation. And now, they're on the verge of something huge, becoming only the 4th country in history to send their own astronauts into space. Their Gaganyaan program is marching right along, step by step. Okay, so we've talked about nations old and new, but there's another player in this game that might be the biggest game changer of all, the private sector. This is, without a doubt, the single biggest shakeup to happen in space in half a century. Yeah, everyone's calling it new space. And what does that mean? Well, basically, the old way was governments did everything. They built the rockets, ran the missions, the whole deal. New space is where private companies are now in the driver's seat. They're building their own rockets, planning their own missions, and figuring out how to actually make money in space.
And you can see the difference right here. You've still got the old guard, like Lockheed Martin, who are amazing at what they do, building specific parts for government contracts. But then you have the new space disruptors like SpaceX and Blue Origin. They're not just contractors, they're innovators. They're the ones cracking the code on reusable rockets, and that one thing is radically changing the cost of getting to space.
And it's not just about getting there. It's about staying there. This whole commercial revolution is moving into space stations. Get this, a private company is planning to launch its own station, Haven 1, before the ISS is even taken out of service. Just think about what that means. It's opening up orbit for business, for science, for tourism. It's a whole new world.
So, we've got new countries, we've got two competing blocks, and we've got a whole army of private companies all rushing into space, which brings us back to the most important question of all. With this cosmic gold rush going on, who's the sheriff? Who gets to make the rules?
You see, the main rule book we have, the Outer Space Treaty from 1967, is, well, it's a little out of date. It was written back when only 2 countries could even get to space. It has some beautiful ideas in it, like space belongs to everyone, but when it comes to the real, tough questions we're facing today, it's got nothing to say.
And that leaves us in this huge legal limbo, a Wild West, if you will. I mean, think about it. Who's responsible for cleaning up the millions of pieces of space junk? If you mine water on the moon, do you own it? How do we stop an arms race from starting in orbit? These are huge, urgent questions with no clear answers.
And honestly, the stakes could not be higher. What happens in the next few years, the rules that are set, whether it's by the Artemis Group, the ILRS, or just by what private companies decide to do, is going to set the stage for everything that follows. We're literally writing the future history of humanity in the solar system right now.
So it all boils down to this. What kind of future are we building up there? Is space going to be this amazing shared resource for all of us? A place for discovery? Or is it just going to become the next battlefield for fights we couldn't settle down here on Earth? The rules are being written as we speak. The only question is, who's holding the pen?